If you're watching this right now, I'd say there's a pretty good chance that you have been wanting to apply or have a pending EOI or visa application for Subclass 491, 190, or Subclass 189 with the Department of Home Affairs. Now, if you came from a student visa, I also bet that some of you have spent ridiculous amount of money coming over to Australia only to jump from one course to the next. I have also seen a lot of people who have tried literally every online forum and every free consultations they can find to answer their questions. Okay, so now you have shifted from a cheap and popular program to a higher education program. You have set the IELTS exam a couple of times and maybe tried PTE to bump up your English score. You've done and completed the language translation certificate, and then you hold off the engagement and marriage to get more points. And yet, here you are still waiting for an invitation from the immigration. Well, in this video, you are going to learn the 3 important reasons why you never get invited despite of all the steps you've taken to increase your points, and why I think you can improve your chance of getting invited and eventually lodge or obtain that Subclass 491, 189, or 190 visa. Okay. Hi, my name is Teresa Cardona. I'm a lawyer and a registered migration agent from Ausback Visa, where we help Filipino professionals, partners, families, students, graduates, trainees, and our kababayans to migrate to Australia. If you are new here, please click that big subscribe button and all the links I will mention in this video. You can find the links in the description below. So, why do I think you are not invited despite all the efforts you made in the previous years? Now, there are 3 reasons why, but let me start with a more general reason that is brought about by COVID-19. I believe that most of you have done the hard work already. You've studied in Australia, you push up the English score, you've done the professional years, you completed the NATI translation certificate, you hold off the engagement and marriage, you lodged the EOI with the Department of Home Affairs. But the general reason why you never receive an invitation, especially in the recent past, is simply because your occupation is not on the priority migration skilled occupation list. This list. Now, this list includes the chief executive or managing director, the construction and project manager, mechanical engineer, general practitioner, resident medical officers, psychiatrists, medical practitioner not elsewhere classified, midwife, registered nurse in the aged care, registered nurse in the critical care and emergency, registered nurse in the medical area, the registered nurse in mental health, and registered nurse in perioperative, registered nurse in not elsewhere classified, developer programmer, software engineer, maintenance planner. Now, the EOIs in those occupations receive invites at 80 points for onshore applicants. Now, ever since COVID-19, the applicants with occupation in the critical sectors are prioritized over all the other occupations listed in the standard MLT-SSL and ST-SSL. Now, with the negative impact of COVID, the skilled migration quotas were also affected, reducing the intakes for this year. So remember, it's from 96,620 down to 54,200. Now, the priority migration skilled occupation list and the migration plan numbers are 2 important factors that are out of your hands and therefore beyond your capacity to fix. You can simply go with the flow, knowing that you have done the best that you could and that the steps that you have taken are correct and updated. Okay, putting the COVID aside, you will still have to check the viability of your plans to lodge an EOI, or at least check whether your prospect or your current EOI is still good. You've got to look for something in your EOI that may not be in tune anymore, because when things get back to normal, you do not want to be sitting there just waiting for invitation. So, the reason number 1 why you are not invited is because you have never lodged for a more lenient visa but Subclass 189 independent skill visa. Yeah, I know. Subclass 189 is a PR visa, and it won't require you to beg your relative or do a constant monitoring of the states. But do you know that independent skilled visa subclass 189 is the last in the priority in the processing ranking of the immigration for skilled migration? Now, unless your occupation is in the priority migration or critical occupation list, it is unlikely that you will get invited, especially now that regional areas are the priority of the immigration. Now, unfortunately, if this is your only preference because you will not be required to live or work in the designated or regional area, well, you can wait for the longest time. Now, meanwhile, those who have selected Subclass 491 have already been invited and granted a visa and are on their way to complete their 3 years in the regional areas. So in a few years, they will be ready to jump to permanent visa. So Subclass 491 state, regional, and family-sponsored visa applicants receive higher numbers of invitation than Subclass 189. Now, on the other hand, Subclass 190 is also prioritized over an independent skilled visa. So, yes, we know that Subclass 189 is a straight PR and has more flexibility and freedom because you can work anywhere in Australia. But if you have not been invited for more than a year, you will need to really think it through. So, in short, Subclass 189 skilled independent visa may be an overreach for you, and you have to try to open your options to other visas. Okay, by the way, there is nothing wrong with indicating or choosing 491, 190, and 189 all at the same time, because you will be invited for Subclass 491 in the first instance because you will generally have a higher EOI point scores for this visa. You will not be invited if you are not the highest rank candidate in the stream you nominated to apply. So, if you only selected Subclass 189 and you are not the highest ranked candidate, then your EOI will probably sit in the system for a longer time. Now, the second reason is that you lodge an EOI to a state that you are not eligible or no longer eligible. What happens here is that you pass the points test and met all the requirements of the Department of Home Affairs, but failed to meet the special requirement for a state nomination. Okay, for example, you are a cook who elected New South Wales as the nominating state for Subclass 190 a year ago. So you live and work in Queensland while waiting for a nomination from New South Wales. However, as you can see now, New South Wales has a special requirement which states that you must either be residing in New South Wales or offshore for at least 6 months, or be residing and employed in your nominated occupation in New South Wales or offshore for at least 1 month. You are not eligible for New South Wales nomination if you are currently residing in a different Australian state or territory. So, if you are waiting in Queensland because you were told 2 years ago that it was okay, you better check again. You might be waiting for nothing. Okay, this is the reason why I always reiterate how important it is to consult a registered migration agent specializing in the skilled migration, and why it is important that you as an applicant also know the process. And that way, you can collaborate and help one another towards a common goal. Remember, immigration laws and procedures change from time to time. No one can hold the future for you, but you can avoid the mistakes by being updated and by paying a professional to listen and give you the correct advice. Now, the third reason why you don't want to receive an invite is because you lodged an EOI with the Department of Home Affairs Skill Select but did not submit an EOI for state nomination in the relevant state. Now, to make it worse, you have also selected any in your EOI. Now, the state nomination process is overly complex and time-consuming. To understand the requirements, the processing, and timing of state nomination requires knowledge and experience. Unless you can understand and follow the changes in the Commonwealth laws and state direction, I suggest that you leave the job to the professionals, the migration agents, and migration lawyers. They have the most updated knowledge about this and can make the whole process stress-free. Now, selecting state in your EOI is not the best move. I know you want to broaden your chance of getting invited in as much as many as states as it can be. But can you honestly convince a state of your commitment if you are undecided where to go? While you think that multiple EOIs will broaden your chance of getting invited, it may only do the opposite. Now, answering any state may be weak as compared to those who only put one state. Now, each state assesses your genuineness and your sincerity for you to live, to work, and stay in the nominating state. Now, each state looks at how committed you are to know and understand your own state. So, in short, states want someone who knows the condition within the state, who could settle easily, and will likely stay there for a longer period of time. So, in fact, almost all states now include the residency as part of their special requirement. And they do ask you if you can contribute anything to the state. So, I've discussed the 3 reasons why you are not invited to Subclass 491, 189, and 190 today. But if you want me to look at your own personal EOI, send me an email or book for a consultation. I will be happy to check your lodge EOI and see if it's still good. So email me at admin@outbackvisa.com.au. So that's admin@outbackvisa.com.au. Okay, for my tips. My tip number 1. Open your options to Subclass 491 and 190, not just Subclass 189. If you are qualified for Subclass 189, you are likely qualified for Subclass 491 and 190. So open that option. And tip number 2, continue to improve your scores. Don't just settle for 65. You know, the rule of the game is the higher the score is, the better chance of getting invited. Okay, tip number 3, if you lodge an EOI, check it and see if you have done it correctly. Check if the state eligibility and special requirements are still the same as when the time you lodge the EOI. And then tip number 4, take a step to correct or fix the issue if you found anything. Don't waste your time blaming others or the government. Always consult a registered migration agent to give you a proper advice or direction. And then make sure to subscribe for more educational video on Australian visa for Filipinos. So again, click and subscribe. See you next time. Bye.